Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, of course, the greatest live broadcast in all of YouTube. Of course, we're glad to have all of you guys with us here in the chat box tonight for our second episode of the real season 11. And this week we've got a real challenge. I'm going to be doing the drawing tonight, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, we'll say hello to Ashley, sitting over there. How are you tonight, Ashley?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you for asking. I see a lot of familiar faces and names in the chat, so thank you guys all for being here. I've got a chance to look at the reference that Matt's going to work from, and it's got a lot of nice things happening in that image. It's a good-looking photograph. I can't wait to see what he does with the drawing.
Yeah, as many of you guys know, I like to draw little objects, lots of times food, and this week's no different. We're going to be drawing a ring pop. We're going to be using a combination of alcohol-based markers and colored pencils, and we're going to be working on gray paper. Now, the photo reference that I'm using is available to you at the community tab on the YouTube channel. So to access that, all you have to do is click on the icon of my face underneath this video. That will take you to the YouTube channel, and then all you need to do is look for the community tab. Clicking on that community tab will bring up the photo reference. I'll have it up during tonight's broadcast, but if you want to draw alongside, you can have a copy for yourself, of course, and then you can just follow that link back to the page where the video is being broadcast. Of course, if you're watching this sometime in the future, you can go through those same steps and find the photo reference as well. There is a chat box, of course, during tonight's broadcast. And if you want to chime in, you're welcome to do so. If you do have a comment or question that's directed at Ashley or I specifically, if you will use the super chat function, that will definitely help us out, and it will get your comment and question highlighted, and we will answer it and address those for sure. It does cost a little bit of money to do that, but of course that helps the channel and helps us with this broadcast. And I know a lot of you guys enjoy this kind of thing, and any help that you can provide for us is definitely we're thankful for that, of course. Now, of course, there is the membership program at thevirtualinstructor.com. We're working on the 22nd course now. Each one of our courses includes step-by-step instructional videos and step-by-step ebooks. There's also a live lesson. We do live lessons each week. In fact, we're going to be finishing up our current series right after this broadcast for members. All of our recorded live lessons, there's 496 of those, are available to you as well as part of the membership program. There's also weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, and there's a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers, which includes everything that you would need to teach in your classroom, from videos, handouts, and so on. So if you want to check out the membership program, of course, there's a link in the description below. I've also left a link if you want to just check out some of our courses. We do offer those individually as well beyond the membership program. All right, with all of that being said, I think I need to make the most of every second tonight. Oh, before we go into it, each season we've had a theme. This season we do not have a theme. We are choosing to choose our own subject matter and our own media. And I have a problem of being a little bit ambitious and thinking that I can do things in a shorter amount of time than I can. And I am really concerned about tonight's drawing. I did a little test run just to pick out my colors and everything, and it was well beyond 45 minutes. So I'm hoping I can shave off some time, since I'm not going to be looking for colors, specific colors, and go through this one quickly. So keep in mind, this is Getting Sketchy. We are creating a sketch here. But I have noticed that a few folks have taken their drawings quite a bit further, and I've noticed those being posted over on the community at thevirtualinstructor.com, and those are some awesome drawings. So I love seeing what you guys post from the Getting Sketchy episodes, and also the live lessons and the courses as well. It's fantastic to see that work. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and switch over and take a look at the materials.
Let's do it.
All right. So here I have planned out my picture plane, and it is the same shape as the photo reference. So in my case, this is a pretty small picture plane. It's 4 inches tall by 6 inches across, and I'm going to use the edges of this picture plane to help me find the location of the shapes that I need to draw initially for the ring pop. There's our ring pop up there in the corner. There is a deceptive amount of complexity in this particular image. It might seem like it's pretty simple, but there's lots of angles, and it's going to present a challenge. So sketching out the subject is going to take a bit of time. And of course, adding the colored pencils and the markers is also going to take a bit of time. The markers are going to help us go a little bit quicker, but colored pencils are a medium that are, they're pretty much a slow medium if you use them correctly. So I'm going to be blazing through this here. I'm going to be going as quickly as possible with this. And again, I just want to reiterate how nervous I am.
Matt, we decided not to have a theme this time.
Yeah.
Try to take a little pressure off of ourselves.
Right. And
it's not working.
Yeah, it is not working. I have put more pressure on myself with this particular drawing. But as many of you know, I do really like the combination of markers and colored pencils. So that's why I chose that. We're going to be sketching things out. I'm going to be just using an HB graphite pencil for this initially. And then for the markers, I'm going to be using Prismacolor Premier markers here. I have an assortment of colors already chosen. I will try my best to call out the specific color name as I'm grabbing them, but won't get mad at me if I miss a color or two. And I'm also using Prismacolor Premier colored pencils. I'll only bring one of those over here as well. And again, I'll try to call out the specific color that I'm going to be using as well. And then at the end, I'm going to be using a little bit of gouache. This is Winsor & Newton Designer gouache, and I'll be using only white with a little bit of water. All right.
And you folks out there, you could use a different paint. Gouache dries to a matte finish, which is nice on top of colored pencils, but you could do it with a little bit of acrylic paint or a gel pen or a Posca marker. So use what you have, make it work.
Yeah, Posca marker would probably be the second choice out of those. Or you could just do everything with colored pencils and kind of leave open the highlighted areas as best as possible. But there are some really strong highlights on that front-facing plane of the ring pop there. So,
Brent, the plastic part is green.
Yep. That's another reason why I chose. I actually bought 3 ring pops, and the color combinations on the other 2 didn't consist of complementary colors. These 2 colors, red and green, are complementary colors. So they provide high contrast. So I thought that this would make the most dynamic image. And I also photographed this so that a lot of light was shining through, and it made the highlight / shadow area, which kind of seems strange to say, but we have a highlight within the shadow.
Yeah, I love it. It demonstrates the translucent attribute of the ring pop. You might not be able to tell without that light spot in the shadow.
Yeah.
So that'll be nice. That'll be fun to do.
Yep. And I actually have a black pencil ready to go. So for some of you, that's going to be shocking.
A black colored pencil?
Black colored pencil, yeah.
I didn't think you owned one.
I do. It's very long.
It's very long, and it's sharp.
Very long.
Like
I don't think
sharp.
It hasn't really been used very much, but there it is. You can see there's quite a bit of it left.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah, I think so. Let's go ahead and we'll start the timer.
Oh, man.
And while you do that, I'll just mention that we've got folks here from New York, New York City, Norway, Texas, Ohio, Chicago, the UK, Michigan, North by God, Carolina, South Carolina, the Low Country, Georgia, Missouri, Australia, Virginia, and more. So we're glad that you're here. From wherever you are and whenever you are, let's get ready to draw.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to set the timer 45 minutes on the clock. All right. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about a line going right through the middle of the ring pop. And if I drew a line right through the middle of the ring pop, where would it end on the edge of the picture plane? I think on one side it would end right about here. You can kind of see I already started to cheat a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, it's going to end up right about right there again.
So you're looking for the axis.
I'm looking for the axis.
Of your ring pop.
So I'm going to go ahead and draw an axis line here.
And if you're
from one side to the other,
ring pop is, it's a sucker that you can wear on your finger.
Yeah.
You know, a lollipop I guess, is another word for a sucker. I call them suckers, but they're a lot of fun. And you can still use your hands. You don't have to hold on to it. It holds on to you.
And then, again, using the edges of the picture plane, I'm going to figure out where the bottom of the ring pop exists and where one edge is going to be, where this bottom edge is going to be. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw an angle up and figure out, well, it's a little bit over halfway where it starts to bend back. So
Like
it's a
halfway
little
up the page?
halfway up.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit over halfway. So about right in there, it's going to start angling back. And let's see here. We also need to bring the point where it meets
Got a lot of facets in there.
yeah.
And you could look at the overall design of the sucker portion itself as two trapezoids put together and then break it into the facets. Lots of ways to try to simplify all those many shapes.
So again, I'm using the edge of the picture plane to figure out where this circular part needs to be. And it looks like just about over halfway, right about in this area, about where the axis lined up is where it's going to start curving back. And I'm going to draw loosely here at the beginning stages as I'm trying to find where the object is on the paper. All right, now that we've got this information, we can start making adjustments here to our original shape here. I'm going to bring this
A little far
bring
from
this
your axis
further
there.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Good eyes.
And go ahead and, well, this actually needs to have a little bit more space to it. And this comes down almost, not quite straight down, but kind of close to being straight down. Have an angle that goes up, an angle that comes across, and then another one that
And
kind of
Just barely bends
continues
right here.
across.
You know, almost each of these facets has like a little shaded in triangle on it. Just, I guess, the way the light is bouncing around inside of it.
Yeah, in the corners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can see I'm drawing pretty loosely using lots of lines. All right, now that we've got this information, this actually needs to go more up.
Yeah, I
There
can't
we go.
tell if I can see that plane over there.
On the top,
Yeah,
it's
that one.
very
I guess
thin.
it's just a sliver of a
It's
plane.
a thin little sliver, but it's important because it will capture some of that light.
Mhm.
And then just trying to concentrate on the angle and get the angle as close to possible, close to accurate as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, if if you drew that axis line, which I would call it like the gesture of this object, and it was a little bit off in terms of the angle, it won't matter. The line will still help keep the two parts of the drawing, the handle and the sucker portion, lined up with each other. So you
Yeah,
might
that's
have
very
a
true.
difference in your from the reference to the drawing, but what that line really does is helps the two part sort of agree in their orientation to one another. So it's that first line might well be the most important one.
All right, there is another axis.
Axis,
Axis.
the equator,
Oh,
the
there's another.
equator of the handle.
There's another line up there. I'm gonna stop trying to say axis. Axis. Boy, I'll get railed for that. For sure. All right. I think I want to make this a little bit thicker.
So this reference that Matt took himself has a lot of good stuff going on in it. There's some foreshortening in there. The ring pop and the front or the sucker portion overlaps the handle. And so those are two ways to create a little bit of feeling of depth and space, even in such a shallow composition. We've got the complementary colors in there. And then the shadow is, there's a lot going on in there. There's actually 2 light spots in there. And so you get a little bit of value contrast in the shadow. The shadow is to the right of the sucker itself, and it kind of helps to balance out the composition too. So nice photograph.
Thanks. I thought about it.
How many pictures of the ring pop did you take?
I only actually took one.
Wow, that's good.
Well, I may have taken 2. I think I did take 2. The first one, I did not have a lot of the color showing through in the
shadow,
in the reflection. So I changed the light, moved it down, so that there was a little bit more of that color showing through in the shadow. All right, and speaking of shadow, let's go ahead and plan out some shapes for the shadow, because I think I'm okay with this. We'll go back in and add a few little indications of some detail, but
all right,
I think we're okay with this right now. And just let that shadow hook around, just like the ring portion. And then if we kind of come down and go out, we can figure out where this little section is. And then you can kind of see how angular the shadow is. And maybe we'll make this just a little bit longer, because I think I've got it kind of a little bit longer. Kind of like that. And I'm going to mark out where the dark meets the light. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. All right, I'm going to put some indications of where we have dark values on the inside here. I'm not going to get too concerned with the absolute shapes that are happening in there.
And the main thing in there will be this the busyness, the values.
Right.
Quick
Yeah,
changes between light and dark.
Different values.
There's a question in the chat a little earlier, just a moment ago, and it was a question that I had wondered myself. When you drew the ellipse, you drew it off of the jewel. I guess I'll call the sucker part the jewel. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
But you didn't draw it all the way through the whole thing, like a full ellipse, and then erase away the.
No, I didn't. I was just looking at the edge of the picture plane up here, how far out this side needed to go.
Yeah.
And that's approximately where it is. And then where it met up with this side. And then tried to see how far out it needed to go.
So because of the order that you drew the parts in, you were able to use the sucker portion to help you with the ellipse.
Yes.
If I were to draw this and I would have started with the ring, I would have definitely drawn the whole ellipse first. But Matt already had some information on there to help him with that.
Yes. And actually, when I did my test run, I did draw the ellipse first, and it was more difficult.
Okay.
Because I didn't have this information to go by. So I started with the ellipse first and then had the sucker portion come out, the sucker portion come out from the ellipse. And so here, when we're doing it live, I decided to change it up a little bit and save the ellipse for after I had more information. So the more information you have on your paper, the more opportunities you have for comparison purposes. So if there is something that might seem a little bit challenging, because ellipses are challenging, then you can hold off on those more challenging elements and work on simpler shapes and work your way down. All right. Let's see. Okay, 9 minutes on the sketch. That's not too bad. Quickly dab it up, which that's not doing anything. All right, let's go.
Took a little graphic over there.
Let's go ahead and start with our marker applications. I'm going to start here with a blush pink. And I'm just going to cover the entire, if I can get this marker lid off.
Now, Matt's drawn on a gray of paper, so that gray is going to combine with the color of the markers. If you guys are using white, but you're using the same type of markers or same colors, they'll be brighter on white paper.
Yes, for sure. And you could probably get away with just using markers if you were working on white paper for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to add this blush pink over pretty much everything, but I'm going to do so where I still understand and know where the planes are. So I'm using the fat side of the marker here, and you'll see I can still see my pencil strokes through these marker applications.
Now, Matt's going to use a different material for the little highlight in that plane that's almost facing us. So just remember, if you're not going to use more opaque white material over the top, then you will want to leave that space on your paper to preserve the lightness of your paper.
Go ahead and put a little bit of this down here. A little bit of that color.
You still add white colored pencil to the area, but it'll be brighter if it's not on top of the marker.
Let's go ahead and use a green on the body of the plastic piece while our pink applications dry up a little bit.
Kind of like an underpainting that Matt's doing right now. If you're familiar with that method of painting.
And these caps, there we go. Get these caps off. Let's see. Let me make sure this is the color I want here. I'm actually going to start with apple green here.
And that's the warm green?
This is a warm, lighter green. And then we'll go back to that other green in just a minute. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, I'm going very quickly here. You don't have to go this quick. You can go way slower.
Yeah, you don't have a time limit. Just us. Now, it is good practice. We've talked about this, and I think I did a lesson where I drew the same object 3 times with different amounts of time for each of the drawing. I think it was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 30 minutes, maybe something like that. It is beneficial to do time drawings anyway. It does force you to sometimes move on, maybe not have time to make all the corrections that you would make without a time limit at all, just so that you can get as much in as possible in the time that you have. It's good, it's good practice for us nowadays. But there was a time when sort of learning to draw with the time limit and learning to push yourself to move on was almost a requirement for artists because they were working without photographs entirely. So landscape artists were working against the changing of the sun and the clouds. And of course, if you've ever worked with models, they try their very best to stay still. But it's hard to stay still for 20 minutes without your arms starting to drop or droop a little bit. And so there was sort of a natural time limit. There is a natural time limit built in to working without a photograph from life. But even if you are working from photographs like we do here, you can still garner the benefits of working under a time restraint just by imposing one on yourself.
Okay, next I'm adding a little bit of carmine red here. And again, we're going to be using this as an underpainting, of course. But we want to get as much information as we can with our markers in place.
Just picking out the shades now.
A little bit. I'm going to darken things up with gray in just a minute.
Okay.
Kind of just getting darker overall. Still leaving an indication of where each plane meets the next.
Now, are you saving the little tiny light edges where the planes meet one another?
Yeah, I am. I am
that.
thinking about where I'm still preserving those areas.
I do that sometimes, even when I don't observe it. Put a little highlight along a corner instead of having. Of course, there's no lines here. There are only edges that bump into each other, and we can see those little corners because of a contrast between value. Sometimes a little light highlight along a corner, it helps it helps us to understand a little bit more about what we're looking at, creating this illusion on a flat surface. It furthers the illusion. And then also, corners are very likely to catch light. A flat plane is only facing in one direction because it's flat. And if the light source isn't facing right at it or to the same angle to that plane as it is to you, you won't see a highlight. But a corner, because it bends, it's facing on a really small level or in a small area. It's facing several directions. So, and if it's a 90-degree corner, it's really facing like 89 different directions. So its likelihood of catching a highlight is high. So we're used to seeing that. And so you can add a little highlights to corners where you don't see them, just for a little bit more clarity and contrast. And it usually doesn't feel wrong because it happens so much.
Okay, that color I just added was grass green.
Okay, so we've got apple green and grass green.
Yes.
For our two greens.
All right, now I'm going to go with a 50% warm gray. If I can find it. There it is. And God, Lord, who put these caps on?
I think Matt lost hand strength since last week. Can't get his cap. Can't get
having to rip them off.
I was trying to open up a bottle of salad dressing, and I couldn't get it off. I set it down, and my wife picked it up and took the cap off. It's bothering me.
I don't know if I'd tell that story too much.
I probably should have kept that to myself.
Yeah.
I think my hands were slick. I think I had something on my hands. That had to have been it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is a 50% warm gray, and you can see it's darkening the value and giving us a little bit of variety in that value as well.
Now, Brent Duzart says he can see that green really well. And earlier he told us that he was colorblind and couldn't see the green. So I promise
you're healed.
There's some yellow in there. Maybe it's showing up for you because there's some yellow in that green. So Matt and I used to have a student years and years ago. I believe we both had him, who was red green colorblind. And in some of his paintings, there's just like these little hot spots of red that really kind of added a little unexpected twist or element to his artwork that made them fun to look at and unique. I still have some of his artwork that I've kept as examples. And he did a copy, Matt, of a crab it's a painting by Vincent van Gogh. It was a red crab.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on sort of a green surface. And the student that we both had in common, he painted it, but in reverse colors. But of course, we just made sure he had the reds on his palette when he was doing the ground and greens on his palette when he was doing the crab. But for him, it was just a grayscale painting, pretty much just like you would do in a beginning drawing or beginning painting class where you're just working with black and white paint. It is so cool to look at, this bright green crab. Always enjoyed looking at that painting for a copy.
But that's also proof that you don't have to have the colors right. You just have to have the values right.
Yeah, his artwork. I mean, everybody can see and understand what he was painting, even though the colors are sometimes a little off, sometimes way off.
Okay, so this 50% warm gray obviously makes our shadow a little bit darker.
Brent says his color blindness is weird even to him.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it?
I think
color blindness is kind of weird.
Very mildly colorblind with some dull greens, because I argue sometimes with people about what's green and what's brown. So I think it's me. I think I'm the problem.
Well, I see purple everywhere. So.
That's right. Matt sees extra color.
See colors that aren't even there.
Mm-hmm.
But I swear they're there. I see them.
They're there. They're there in the
There's
ratio.
no there. Wait, have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard that.
There was no there.
I think that's what you say when you're trying to discount somebody else just said.
All right, let's go ahead and use this down here, although we're going to go much darker.
And what color is that again?
50% warm gray.
Okay.
We probably actually could skip to the 70% warm gray here, but
yeah. Speaking of color and color blindness, there's some interesting questions in the chat. I see Keith is wondering if color perception changes as you get older. Well, other things about our eyesight change, and I believe that my own personal sense of smell and taste have changed. So maybe, but do they change so slow that we don't notice? Do some, beyond being like just a sort of standard colorblind and colors not showing up, do some people see a color a little different than you see that color? It's like the same blue. Would two people say, yes, that is blue, but they're actually not perceiving it exactly the same? And does that account for why some people dress in brighter colors and some people dress in duller colors? I'm adding that last one, Keith.
I don't know.
I wondered about that myself. Do some people see brighter or more intensity in colors than other folks? Just like
they don't know that they're wearing bright clothes.
Well, they're I mean, I like bright colors. I would wear them on purpose. But yeah, maybe they don't see them as bright as they are. Or other folks will wear like dull colors, but they're colorful enough to them because they see color so brightly anyway. I don't know.
Okay, now we're going to go to the 70% warm gray. Ugh, I can get that open. All right, we'll just let that fall on the ground.
I'm aware that I do not have a well-developed palate, or so I've been told. Can it be the same kind of way for our other senses besides like taste? And some people will taste flavors that I'm clueless as to what they're talking about.
All right, so with this marker, we're looking for the areas of darkest value. Trying to leave us plenty of time for the colored pencil applications.
Well, you've still got 20 minutes, so you're just a smidge over the halfway mark.
And you'll notice that the markers, when I first put them down, they're really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they dry, they get a little bit lighter, especially on this paper.
I guess that's something you just get a feel for working with the alcohol-based markers, because I ordered a set of grayscale cookbook markers not long ago, and for a live lesson. And I had to get used to the very lightest marker because it was super, super faint. It's like 5% gray. And when I first made a mark with it, the paper looked much darker than I expected it to, just because of the moisture in the paper. So I had to get used to about how that light one was going to dry so that I could, make a prediction as to where I should use it and if it was going to even make a difference.
And speaking of moisture in the paper, you might not be able to tell, but the paper is bubbling up from just the marker applications.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to go over all this dark area here with the 70% warm gray. Now, I'm surprised nobody's asked, can I do this with regular markers?
I haven't seen that question.
Yeah, you usually get that when we're working with markers here. And the answer is, sure, you can try. But the alcohol-based markers are translucent to a certain degree. So that allows you to layer colors over the top. That's why we can apply these grays and other colors over the top of what we've already got in place.
And Prismacolor's line of markers is so deep that they have a lot of weak colors, which is really nice. You know, a lot of marker sets are all just very, very loud, screaming bright colors. I like those lower intensity, low chroma colors.
Outside of our shadow gets a little weird here. Let me bend down and pick up this cap. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible, and I'm just not being efficient. I'm throwing stuff all over the place here. All right, let's go back to the 50% warm gray. And then that means I'm going to have to take the cap off again.
Oh, no.
Good Lord.
It's gotten tighter.
What did I do to these?
Must be the humidity.
The humidity?
I don't think marker cases swell. We got a question here. Can I do this on marker paper? You can use colored pencils all right on marker paper, or is it too smooth?
No, absolutely you can.
Okay, there you go. Let's make it happen.
You definitely can. All right, let's get some definition in here with the colored pencils. Actually, though, I really want to bring in some, let's see, some crimson red here. I swear, whoever uses these markers last, I am going to get them.
Somebody's played a joke on you of some sort. But how do you make a marker cap?
It was me. I was the last person. So this is crimson red. And
it's pretty deep on that gray
it's pretty
paper,
deep, but it'll dry a little bit lighter. The more effort we put into the underpainting here, the less effort we'll have to put in with the colored pencils.
Right, and I was just thinking about that last question about working on marker paper. You're working with the sort of the underpainting of markers there really opens up your possibility for the types of papers you can use, because colored pencils are limited by the tooth of the page. Eventually the paper, won't accept any more color pencil. It's just totally glazed over in wax, but you don't need as many layers when you're working with markers underneath. So you can use papers that maybe you couldn't complete the same drawing on with just colored pencils.
I do like the combination of markers and colored pencils on marker paper. So that shouldn't be something that you avoid. Got to get the skinny side of this open. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and close it up here. Close up that plane a little bit. There we go. All right. Let's start applying colored pencils. The first color I'm going to apply is carmine red. If you'll remember, we used this earlier on, but you'll see it's a little bit more of a pinky color.
Carmine red is to me, it leans towards orange.
Yeah, it's kind of a bright pinkish. This one is anyway.
You're using Prismacolor pencils?
Yeah.
So carmine red and Prismacolor could be different, a little bit different from, because it does look kind of pinkish.
Yeah, it's kind of pinkish.
The carmine red that I would order from a different company, was very much a red orange. And so it's interesting. Same color name, but very, very different. what they decided to put in the pencil. So I ordered Carmine from that same company, and it was more red than the one called Carmine Red. So it was a little confusing in the classroom there for a while. If you're going to put red in the title, it should clearly be red.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and put in a little bit of yellowed orange. And we see this right down here, or at least I do. I'm going to bring out a little bit more color in this.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some of it near the middle. And we're going to burnish these applications. So right now I'm just getting the color down as quickly as possible. And these colors are going to seem very bold initially. But once we get all of our colors in place and we do a little bit of burnishing, we should be good to go, as long as we have enough time.
Steve, I see your question, but it looks like Nicole has already answered it. Yes, these are wax-based colored pencils, not watercolor pencils.
All right, next we're going to add, what color do we want to add next?
Purple.
Nope.
It was just a guess.
Wrong answer. Crimson red. That's what we're going to add next. We need these areas to be nice and dark for our highlights to go over the top. No, 11 minutes. There's no way. There's no way I'm going to get done in 11 minutes.
Well, when the time,
Maybe
we should start doing
maybe 15
connecting
minutes.
the lights to the timer so that when the time is up, like the lights go off.
Yeah.
That would have been awful last week. I drew and drew after the time limit, and then when the show was over, I was still drawing. Just had to finally stop.
Well, we'll get as much of this done as we possibly
Yeah.
can. All right. Next, let's start making things a little bit lighter with some French gray. So over the
French
top.
gray is like a extra warm gray, right?
Yeah, it's
Almost like a tannish gray.
Yeah. But the lighter values like this, they're great for kind of just lighting, making values lighter.
Mhm.
Can't talk tonight for some reason.
And if you're lightening a value on a warmer color, it's going to be more appropriate than using the white pencil
Yeah.
because that would cool it down. I'm getting some support over here. in
Oh,
the chat
well,
for
thanks
using
for
some purple.
using some purple.
You're
I
getting
could
some
definitely find some purple in there. Trust me. Trust me. And honestly, if I was doing this as a finished drawing, I probably would be adding some purple in some of those shadowed areas on the inside there.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah. That's what people were
Let's
thinking.
see here. A little poppy red here and there. Yeah, this is a
That's a good color.
warmer red. This will warm things up a little bit. And we're almost ready to burnish these, and then we'll be ready to move on to the shadow and the
looks like we've got a reiteration of the
sucker holder.
question that kind of goes along with some of your color choices, Matt. The question originally was, what is the difference between warm and cool grays? And you used a warm gray marker, and then you used the French gray color pencil, which is an even warmer type of a gray. So warm grays and cool grays, the difference between them is more, of course, apparent if you can actually put them right next to each other. But you can think of cool grays as being more like blue.
Yeah, I have a post on the difference between warm and cool grays.
Right on top.
In a video. So if you want to look for that, you can, and it will explain to you why grays are warm or cool. But really, it boils down to the fact that black is mixed with white to make gray, and black can be made by mixing blue and brown. So if you have more brown in the mixture, you're going to have a warmer gray. And if you have more blue in the mixture, you're going to have a cooler gray. And that's really what it boils down to. But there's quite a bit of variety that you can create in your blacks and your grays.
In the classroom, sometimes we practice making grays without using black also, and we just use the primary colors. And so you can use the primary colors to make, well, if you mix them together a little bit more equal ratio between the three primaries, if they were equal strength, they almost never are. But if the yellow, red, and blue that you mix together were of equal strength, they would make a brown. And then if you added more blue, the brown would become cooler and cooler until it's finally a warm gray. And then even more blue would bring it over to the cooler side. So, all of those neutrals, brown, warm gray, cool gray, you can create them all with different ratios of primary colors, and putting more of a cool color in there to create the cool grays, that helps us to kind of understand that the warm and the cool grays, though closer together than colors on the color wheel, it's still kind of the same. You have the warm half of the colors and the cool half of the colors, and the difference between them is greater, but it's the same difference, temperature.
And right now I'm using a 90% warm gray.
All right.
Colored pencil. All right, let's burnish now. So what I'm doing is I'm using a colorless blender, and that's just going to smooth out the transitions between the different colors that we've added.
Just helps those colors kind of melt together a little bit.
Which I forgot. Let's add a little bit of this. This is 10% cool gray. I'm going to use this for this highlight right over here. And then we'll continue burnishing here. Very quickly burnishing.
It's all about speed now. The sun is about to set on this drawing.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how close we are to sunset. I know I've got 5 minutes left, but it is going to take longer than that.
Closer to 6 minutes.
It's not going to take too much not too much over, but it is going to take a little bit more time.
Okay.
We got to get those highlights in there, and we need to
you won't be satisfied.
Render the shadow and the reflection down here. I probably get away with leaving the plastic part as it is right now, if need be. So let's go ahead and let's burnish this real quick, make it just a little bit smoother. Let's go ahead and move down into the shadow. So we're going to start with our, let's see, this is pink, the color pink. And I'm just going to add a light application of pink here. And we're going to add a little bit of warmth with poppy red.
Mel asks, quick question. What would you do differently if you were using watercolor pencils as opposed to like the normal colored pencils? You know, watercolor pencils are they're just different. They're completely different than colored
completely
pencils.
Different medium. 100% a different medium.
You pick a different paper, probably.
Different paper, and what you would be doing is you'd be adding. I'm gonna put a little bit of red in the shadow. You would be adding the watercolor pencils, and then you would activate it with water. So it makes the drawing look like a watercolor painting.
And Matt's using a medium that's opaque on top of the marker. So Matt,
right?
If it were me, if I were going to do this with watercolor pencils, I would skip the marker step altogether and just do it with watercolor pencils alone. May still use colored pencils over that, but that would be more, I guess, more like what the watercolor pencils are, more like the markers, more like what Matt did with the markers. They end up being transparent.
This is the 10% or 20%. That's 10% French gray.
Okay. Great question, though. Thanks for that. Because they are called, the word colored pencils is in the name.
And I have a lesson on the differences between the different colored pencils that are
oil-based,
are color,
wax-based, that kind of thing.
Oil-based, wax-based, watercolor pencils, ink tints pencils.
All
cover everything that is colored and is a pencil.
I gotcha.
Because there's a lot of confusion, and people kind of assume, well, if it's a colored pencil, it's a colored pencil, but that's not the case at all. All right, now 90% warm gray. We're going to make the shadow dark, and then we're going to make it darker. So I know we're 2 minutes, 12 seconds. That's not too bad. It's not too bad. There's a pretty hard edged line right there. Where that dark part of the shadow meets the colored part, the lighter part of the shadow.
Matt, you just used a French gray, and Ryan Nebula would like to talk a little bit more about grays and wonders the difference between warm gray and French gray. French gray is just a warmer. It's even warmer.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a warmer gray. You can kind of think of a warm. See, this is a warm gray that I'm using, and honestly, it looks pretty cool to me.
Yeah, maybe it's just because of what it's around. It's cooler than some of those other colors.
But a French gray is noticeably more brown. A French, like a middle value French gray, is almost like a khaki color.
Yeah, if you could think about if gray and brown fell in love and had a child, that child would be French gray.
Yep, that's a good analogy. They met in Paris. Oh, Paris.
All right.
Okay,
Looking
so,
good.
Well, I really would like to tone that down a little bit. Maybe the blend, maybe the burnishing will do that.
Yeah, sometimes burnishing will darken your colors a little bit. On white paper. I'm not sure if that's going to happen here.
All right, again, I'm using the colorless blender.
We'll see some of those speckles kind of melt away.
Yeah. Yep. Just melt right into that paper. And honestly, guys, this is way fast with colored pencils. This is not the way I normally use colored pencils. Normally, it's a much slower, deliberate process.
And if you'd like to see
That's-
that slow process, all of the live lessons
Oh yeah.
on Virtual Instructor's website, many of them are colored pencils. Created
All right.
over several weeks, sometimes a couple of months.
Dun 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 dun
Oh,
dun 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 dun. Back in black.
back in black. Yeah.
With we're just going to make this. You notice that I'm not using the black by itself. I'm just using it in conjunction with the colors that we already have, making the shadow a little bit stronger underneath here. And we're going to kind of let it fade in to the 90% warm gray. Just adding a little bit more variety into the shadow / highlight. We got a little bit of color in there already with a little bit of red. All right, we're going to use this black just a little bit up here. Again, just to increase the contrast. Make this stand out just a little bit more.
Yep. Makes all those other colors feel a little bit lighter by contrast. Tricia says, great job.
Well, it's not finished yet.
Matt's got a highlight to put on there.
I got lots of highlights to put on
It's
there.
like dessert. Save it for last.
And we really didn't do anything with the
With the
we
handle.
didn't really apply any colored pencils up here at all. So let's do that real quick.
Okay.
And we're just going to maybe make the color a little bit bolder. I know this isn't the same color as what's in the reference, but we can add a little bit more variety up here maybe.
Yeah, I like the
The
shape
yellow
of the
green.
reflection on there. I like it being a little more apparent, like it is in your drawing. The reflection on the plastic part, I can see it's the edge of that reflection pretty clearly up at the top, but a little bit less so. It's softer as you go around to the right side of that green handle, but I like having the shape a little bit more defined on there.
And my pencils need to be sharpened too. But we do what we can do. Time's up. I see that. All right. All right. So I will add the highlights here. Let's first erase. Well, I don't know how long that time's up thing has been up there, but
Just a couple of minutes.
a couple of minutes. That's a lot. Well, I got most of this in place in a lot of time. Now let's add the highlights. So to do this, I'm going to use a little bit of gouache. And what gouache is opaque watercolor. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this and just
Right on the paper. Look at this, folks.
right
The
there.
paper is palette.
Hey, that's getting sketchy.
Getting sketchy over here.
Nothing's finished here. I'm going to use a little bit of water and a real tiny brush. And I'm going to dilute it just a little bit so my highlights aren't quite overpoweringly strong. And then I'm going to start adding these
There's some
highlights up
questions in
here.
the chat about the virtual instructor live lessons and when they are and where they are.
Yeah,
Folks, the lesson will start in 30 minutes. So we're almost there, and they're for members of the virtual instructor. But if you're not a member, you can sign up for, is it a 7-day free trial, Matt?
Yep, 7-day
Check
free
it out.
trial.
Check out the live lesson, see how much content is on the website. Lots of different media and subject matter.
It is ridiculous how much content there is. I'm doing a lot of coding and updating things. And,
Yeah, it's a big site. If
And
it was a
I'm- yeah.
publicly traded company, Congress would break it up. It's so big.
I think there's probably close to 2,000, 2,500 videos, something like that in total. There's our little highlights developing
All right.
there.
One thing Matt and I were talking about before we went live was his choice to use the gouache instead of another option that he's got here in the studio. It's well stocked with art supplies. He and I both have been using the Posca markers for highlights and things like that lately. But because the gouache is thinned out with water, and it is sometimes called, it goes by another name, like Matt mentioned, opaque watercolor, but you can add enough water to it so that it starts to become a little milky, a little transparent, and that gives you a chance to have a little bit more control over the absolute brightness of your highlights.
Yeah, it lets it be a little bit more subtle, where the Posca markers are pretty strong, and you're going to have some really strong highlights. And this brush is pretty small too, so I can go in here and add highlights with a greater level of control.
All right, Sonia says, love the pop ring, Matt and Ashley. Can't wait to draw it and post on the virtual instructor.
All right, sweet. I'll be looking for it. So these little highlights here. This particular plane is kind of strange because it's got all of those really strong highlights.
Yeah. And it's got this little tiny dark spot too.
That don't really exist in other locations.
Yeah, that one plane really reveals the surface quality of the sucker. I guess you could throw a few in other places too.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to spread the love here. Make these a little bit stronger.
I just think gouache is a perfect medium to combine with color pencil. And, it doesn't have to be bright white highlight. Sometimes you can just do it, just use the gouache, with colors, just for maybe a nice, light, sharp color. Because you can't, it's very difficult with colored pencils to be able to work from darker to lighter. You're better off. A dark color will cover a light color, but usually not the other way around, or not completely. So when you do need to go a little bit lighter in an area and you just can't make it happen with another layer of colored pencils, sometimes the gouache is your friend.
I think gouache is always my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Gouache is a good friend. It listens to me when I need to be listened to.
He's always there.
He's a nice, or she's a nice, whatever it is. It's a great shoulder to cry on. All right, this edge right here, I'm just gonna, that edge is too black.
Buddy, I see your comment, and I hate we'll be missing you over at the live lesson, but I hope you get some rest, and we'll see you next week.
You know what? I'm going to add a little stronger highlight up here along the edge.
Dale says the gouache is good for doing sparkles on water. Yeah, that's tough, because the water is usually like at the ocean. It's very dark, and then those highlights are just so screaming bright on top. Perfect application.
All right. I think I'm finished for real.
All right. Time's up. I just noticed it. I looked up into the corner of the screen and saw that.
There's
perfect.
There's tons more I could do to this. And now that I'm looking at it on the screen, I see that my ellipse is off a little bit. Let's see if I can just alter this shape a little bit. Which that really wasn't the problem area, but that helps a little bit.
Well, it masks it a little bit. It makes it starts to make the turn there.
So. Yeah. Well, I kind of got it done in the amount of time. Kind of.
We'll acclimate to the time limit. It's been a little while. We took a fairly decent break, and the binoculars really gave me a run for my money last week too. So I think I'm in a better position to choose a subject matter for next week that is doable in our 45 minutes, and we'll still have plenty of time to talk and chat about our process and other things that you guys bring to the conversation.
All right. Can't help myself. All right. So let's go ahead, and we got all the comments there.
Enrique says, great job, Matt. Thanks for this class. Scarf and T says, wonderful job, Matt. Colleen says, this looks incredible. And Jan says, great job, Matt. And there's other supportive comments rolling in.
Well, thank you guys.
So Thank you.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, this part is too long, but it's okay. I could have moved that back a little bit further.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always look at your artwork and find things to change, and especially when it's a sketch like this. There's lots of things to change. I need to go back in here.
I'm just going to do a line drawing, no shading or rendering at all, and you can still spend 45 minutes on it. I mean, there's really no limit to how long you can make those small adjustments towards accuracy. But at some point, you just got to go with it. You got to move on to shading and color application.
All right, I'll stop now. All right, let's switch out over here. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around for the last long time. It's over an hour. I hope you enjoyed the process. I'm certainly glad to have this one under my belt. Some of the other plans I have for this season include quicker mediums than colored pencils, but I did want to do a combination of markers and colored pencils.
I think it's good for people to see because those two media aren't typically paired together, or at least they didn't used to be. And you use them effectively together a lot.
Yeah, I use them a lot, actually.
I'm glad you did that on Getting Sketchy and not just for longer duration lessons.
Yeah.
Now I got a question.
Yeah.
Does that ring pop still exist?
No, it doesn't. My youngest daughter ate it and consumed it. And, of course, was bouncing off the walls afterwards. But
a lot of sugar in there.
My kids think that candy is an acceptable food for all meals, and they don't understand why you have to eat regular food. In fact, the other night, my heart was breaking, but my youngest daughter did not eat what was provided for dinner. So we told her, you're going to have to go to bed without eating. You understand that, right? She was like, yeah, okay, fine. And it wasn't 30 minutes later, she was crying for food. And we put her to bed without eating. And some of you guys are going to hate on me for that, but you don't understand. She's done this continually every night. Well, and then we give in and we give her a bar or bananas or something like that.
And you know that the prepared meal is healthy for her.
Right.
You know, she actually needs the minerals and the vitamins that are in there.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's why you cook it.
Yeah. And part of your job as a parent is, doing the hard things. And that was definitely a hard thing for me. But we got through it, and I feel pretty confident she's going to eat her dinner from now on. I always eat my dinner, but tonight I have not had any dinner because I have been working since lunch straight through until we started here.
Well, you started another show in 23 minutes. So we better get off of here so I can put something.
Continue to work.
Eat a bite. Eat a bite, or he's going to pass out.
I'm not going to eat anything. I am literally going to just swipe my hand from one side to the other and just slide everything off. Yeah, I have got markers, colored pencils, stuff everywhere, and I got to get set up for watercolor. All right, so I'm going to do that now. Remember, if you like this video, make sure that you give it a like. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so you're notified when we go live like this and when new videos are posted, of course. And leave a comment below. If you watch this live, of course, you probably left a comment in the comment box. But if you are watching the recorded version, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. With that, I think we're going to sign out. Ashley, got anything else for anybody else?
I've got nothing to add. But I'm reading you guys' comments. They're great. So we'll see you next week. I'll be doing the drawing, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, but I'm excited about it. I'm going to try to take my own photograph, like I did for the last week. I like drawing my own photographs better, and it actually goes faster sometimes than looking for the right photograph that already exists and doesn't have a copyright on it. So anyway, just check back close to next Wednesday to see what we're going to be drawing and what we're going to be drawing with, so you'll be ready.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign out and get ready for our next broadcast. Good night, everybody.